Okay.
That's good.
All right. Messages and mindset. So this weekend, good morning, Jenny. This weekend, I listened to this amazing book. Now, if you are offended by foul language, you don't need to get this book because you will be so offended that you will lose the message. I was told about this person, or I saw this person on the Today Show maybe a couple of years ago. I think it was 2018, 2019. This person was on the Today Show and about the book. And I'd seen him a couple of times. I was like, oh, he's a little too hardcore, a little too strident for me. I don't know. And then somebody posted a quote that he had over the Memorial Day weekend before I got on the road. And as I was looking through my Audible, because I always try to listen to a book or podcast or something on my way. And I said, you know what? Let me just listen to this book. And it is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, Goggins. Hashtag Can't Hurt Me. David Goggins. Y'all, there's so much in this book that ties into everything we've been talking about over the last year for the Rutledge perspective and stuff I've been talking about for years. And here's the thing. Here was the revelation that I got from, among many things. Here's one of the revelations I got, probably the overarching revelation I got. So we've talked about on the show how important mental health is. And by the way, I stand with Osaka. Pulling out of the French Open to take care of her mental health. I stand with you, girl. Do what you got to do, because nobody else is going to care when you lose your mind. So you take care of you. The French Open most certainly isn't going to care. So you do what you need to do to take care of you. What I realized through all of the work that I have done is, one, you got to do the work. That's one of the big messages in this book. You got to do the work. And through all the work I've done on my own tapes and head trash and all that kind of mess and being caught up in corporate where you just go, and you end up thinking you're crazy and you're not the one that's crazy. They're crazy. You're not crazy. Is that there are things that for me are a challenge, right? So when we talk about accountability and accountability partners and all that kind of stuff, I have to be careful with that word, because that word for me can sit as judgment. That's how it feels. It feels like judgment. And that gets me into that fight or flight, right? Polyvagal, right? Gets me into that fight or flight, that systemic nervous system. And that whole idea of, just rebellion. I am just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to, right? That whole judgment thing. But what I realized as I was reading this book, it was a real manifestation of how far I personally have come around some of that stuff. And what I believe and what I keep telling you guys around knowing yourself, but also giving yourself grace and doing the work. His book is harsh. It is hardcore. It is about, he calls it callousing your mind, making your mind hard, making your body hard. Don't let things get to you. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Really get to the point where you so don't care about what anybody else thinks that it doesn't affect you at all. At all. And so as he's talking about some things, there were people or points in the book where I'm like, I got a zing. Like when he's talking about, you just need to work harder. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you just pulling up? You need to, right? You should. And he's also very deliberate about saying, this is a book of no judgment. I'm not judging anybody. He said, this is about me. What I wrote this book is for you to find what you need to do for you. He said, so I can't sit in judgment of you. And his story is pretty rough. His story is pretty rough. He had an extremely difficult, abusive childhood. And ended up being, I think it was the number 36 African-American Navy SEAL. Only 36 at the time that he got in. And it took him, I think, 3 times to get into the SEAL. I mean, this man is hardcore, right? He's an ultra runner. He's run on broken legs, broken toes. I mean, it's incredible. And even the last part of his story, when he talks about this really mysterious illness that he had and how he went back to something that he'd learned during the SEALs that really got him back to where he needed to be. Something really simple. I just don't want to give it away because I was amazed. And it really convicted me about something I should be doing every day too. But it really, reading this book, really got me to remembering that, or recognizing that, one, look how far you have come in that you can listen to this hardcore, in your face, alpha male, do it harder, faster, and take what you need out of that message to grow and develop, right? Take the message that you need that really pumps you up and not get all crazy. That was a big revelation and a big win. But the other thing that popped up was we can only hear the messages we need to hear when we are ready to hear them.
Yes.
Before that, it doesn't matter. When I got ready to leave corporate, I wasn't even sure. I just knew something had to change. And once again, I was driving home. It was when I first started kind of listening to podcasts. And this was an old podcast. But someone had told me about this particular podcast. I think it was called Inside something. I can't remember because he's changed the name of the podcast. But I happened to just pull it up because a friend of mine, Leela, had actually told me about it. And I pulled it up. And the one I pulled up was a podcast interview with Lisa Nichols. And I'd never heard of Lisa Nichols. I didn't know who she was at the time. And I listened to that podcast on my drive home. And in that podcast, she said, most of us don't get what we want. She said, my grandmother always told me that your conviction and your convenience do not live on the same block. And most of us don't get what we want because we are unwilling to be inconvenienced. That's what I'm talking about, Jerry. Was that deep?
That was deep.
Most of us will not get what we want because we are unwilling to be inconvenienced. And it was that December, that was December 2016. It was that December when I drove home that I said, I'm done. I'm done. It's just, it is no longer worth the energy, the effort, the pain to stay in this organization, to stay doing this. It is just not worth it. I am more important to me than this. But I wasn't ready to hear that until then. I was in enough pain. I had done enough work. I had been through enough stuff that I said, okay, you know what? Something's got to change. And I was willing to say, what is the thing that's got to change? Whatever that is. I was at that whatever it is point. Because before then, all you're working on is, I got to do something different. I got to be different. It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes it is. But sometimes it's not you. Sometimes it's just not a fit, or the environment is no longer conducive to your growth and your safety. And so it was time. But I was not ready until then. And so when I was listening to David's book, David, like I know him, David's book, that's one of the things that came across is we can't hear the message we want to hear until we are ready. And sometimes that means you are in such severe pain or such severe discomfort, or you've really reached that area of joy where you're like, there is nothing that's going to ruin my joy. So whatever I need to do to keep this, that's what I'm willing to hear. Only then can we hear the message that we need to hear. Only then. Only then. And even in his messaging, I'm like, man, this was incredible. This was incredible. And I encourage you to get this book, y'all. It was probably on Audible. I sped it up to like 1.5 times. So it took me 7 hours to listen to the book. And it was so good. I'm actually going to go buy a hard copy if I can get my hand on a hard copy. And he's got challenges after each chapter. It's 11 chapters.
What's the name of the book?
It's called Can't Hurt Me. David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. And even in understanding the messages and the mindset, that's the big piece of his book, is about getting your mind so calloused, so hard that nothing can hurt you. Nothing can hurt you. And this man has attempted things so many times. And for him, he's like, failure is just a thing. And he has failed, like publicly failed and gone back at things 2 and 3 times. And most of us, when we fail, we are so embarrassed. We're so embarrassed by that failure that we just walk away. We just walk away. He went right back at it. So he tried to beat the 4,020 pull-up record on national TV and failed publicly on national TV. His body just gave out. But he didn't prepare. And that's the other thing he talks about that I want to talk about, because we've talked about preparation before. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. 6 P's. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. David talks a lot about preparation and how his failures, the failures that he experienced, were really a result of a lack of preparation. Not a lack of conviction, not a lack of desire, but a lack of preparation. And in some cases, a lack of humility, right? Some cases, way too arrogant, way too confident. So confident that you forget to pay attention. That's what happened in one of his when he was trying to go to be Delta Force and didn't make it. So it's that whole idea of making your mind hard so that you can withstand anything is quite a concept. But as I said a minute ago, it's getting the pieces of the message that you need to hear, right? So I'm not necessarily about callousing my mind, because one of the things that makes me me is my ability to feel. The fact that I am an empath, the energy that I get off of other people, is part of what makes me who I am. It's also part of what makes it very hard for me sometimes to keep my energy up and to be focused on the things I need to do. But it's who I am. So there's a level of callousing, a level of mindset management that I absolutely need to do just to be able to perform. But don't know that I need to go all the way to, David Goggins, hardcore, you're not feeling anything that's not related to the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Because that's kind of the extreme. But even in that, that thinking about proper prior planning and mindset and hardening your mindset to be able to do what you want to do, it is that idea that if you have set a strategy, what is my goal? Because a goal without a plan is just a wish. What is my goal? And then doing the research. Man, he is a research hound, right? And he is not, as he says, I'm using his words, he is not the brightest person out there. He had some learning disabilities. He had some real challenges when he was first going through school. He actually has sickle cell trait that he didn't find out till much later, right? So he has some pretty significant obstacles. But what he didn't do is allow those obstacles to become complete barriers. An obstacle is different than a barrier. An obstacle is something you can go through, around, up, over, across. A barrier tends to be impenetrable. And he didn't allow these things to become barriers. But what he did do is take the time to educate himself, to continue to be on a learning path. How can he learn more? How can he figure out how to overcome the obstacles to get to the goal that he is trying? It's about preparation. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Spend the time learning. The other thing that came out of that when you talk about preparation is he said, and this is what convicted me this morning too, because I clearly failed this morning, because we're transparent here on the Rutledge Perspective, and I'll just tell y'all what happened. One of the things he talks about is, setting goals, really small goals, and then making them happen, and always doing something, starting every day, and make sure every day you do something you hate. Every day you do something you hate. He, of course, runs and exercises and all this kind of stuff all the time, right? So he gets up at 4:00 every morning, and he gets his run in, or he gets his stretching in, or he gets his whatever in for hours, 2 and 3 hours, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles every morning at 4 a.m. And he's in bed by 9 or 10, right? And he makes the most of every day. And so he talks about going through and doing a very detailed evaluation of your schedule. Where are you spending your time? Because you're probably wasting some time. He's like, I don't have cable or social media. He said, I've got a Facebook page and stuff. He said, but I'm very rarely on it. There's such time wasters. And he is not about wasting time. Every minute of his day is productive. He does say you need to rest. And so I will say, put your mask on first. Sometimes you just need to veg. But his deal is you don't stay there. You're always doing something. You're always learning. If there's something that you wanted to do, why are you saying you don't have time to do it? Go learn the language, go learn the instrument, go do something that you have no idea how to do, that puts you back at novice mode, that puts you back at failure mode. Go have to stretch some muscles that you don't have. It's about resistance, right? When we get stronger, when we build muscles, you build muscle because you've torn the muscle down first. Strength training burns the muscle so that it can build back up stronger. That's what it is. It's the same thing through your life. You learn by doing, you learn by pain, you learn by failure. And the problem is a lot of times we get stuck in that failure, and we see the failure as the end, as opposed to failure as the stepping stone, that brick in your foundation, that cornerstone of the mansion you're trying to build, right? Your mansion of gifts. And I don't mean tangible gifts, your mansion of purpose, right? We sometimes look at it and we forget or we get so caught up in the emotion of failure and the embarrassment of failure that we don't use it to our advantage. And he is all about using every single experience to your advantage. And it wasn't easy. So don't let me make you think that this book is like all sunshine and roses and unicorns and rainbows, because it is not. And his life is not. But he's also unapologetic. And we should be too. We should be unapologetic about who we are. We may have to apologize for some actions we took, right? And some choices we made that were not the right choices. But we shouldn't be apologetic about who we are. And we just have to dig deep into owning our own stuff, owning who we are, understanding where we want to go, and understanding how willing we are to be inconvenienced to get there. Because it's going to take some inconvenience. So the failure I was talking about this morning, after I read this book, I was fired up, y'all. I was fired up. I had my whole list of stuff I'm going to do, because I've got these things that are happening, right? In life and in business. I've got these things that I'm working for. But I haven't had the time to spend on the strategy that I need to spend. All this stuff, Physician Heal Thyself, right? All the stuff I tell y'all to do. I haven't had, quote unquote, had the time to spend in the thinking phase and the strategy space and laying it out and getting stuff done and making my plan. I just haven't had the time. And the reality is I haven't made the time. I haven't made the time, right? But the way it translates in our brain in the beginning is I don't have time. I don't have time for that. So as I finished reading this book and I was driving up to my house, I was like, okay, I am on it. I'm back on my plan. I've still got these last few I want to lose. There's a level of health goal that I want to be in. And it's not just aesthetic for me. There's a feeling, there's a way that I want to feel. And I've been off my game for a while. I haven't fallen completely off the reservation, but I've been off my game for a while. So I was listening to this and I'm like, okay, we're going to get on it. From now on, I am up at 4 every morning. Now, my brain already wakes up, but like get up and get moving, and then go to bed at a reasonable time, right? So you can go back and do it all over again. Continue to go to your trainer, really focus on your food, all that kind of stuff, and do one thing you hate every day. I hate to dust. But I also hate that my house is in chaos. Can't have anyone over syndrome. Chaos. And I'm like, you know what? I want anybody to be, no. So I'm going to say this, but I don't mean it the way it sounds. I want anybody to be able to show up at my house at any time and me feel like I can just let them in. Now, I need you to call first. Don't just show up at my house. But that sentiment, right? That you're not having to, oh my God, is the bathroom clean? Have I dusted? Or and I hate it. And for me, as we've talked about before, part of my management of my mindset is when my space around me gets cluttered, I know my mind is cluttered. And so it's a trigger for me too. So it's not necessarily all bad for me. It's actually a trigger when I'm really focused. But when I'm really focused and don't realize that my focus is unfocused, that chaos around me is my trigger to say, you need to pause a minute, regroup, remove the clutter from your space and from your mind, and let's get back at it. So I said, I'm going to get up 4 a.m. We're just going to make this happen. So my brain wakes up at what I believe is around 2. Actually, at first time I woke up about 12:45. I was able to go back to sleep. Then I woke up around 2. Now, normally I can kind of put myself to sleep, but I have an issue. I don't have an issue falling asleep. It gets dark. My brain goes dark, but I have trouble staying asleep. So I woke up at what I think is 2 o'clock. Because the other thing I've learned is don't look at the clock. When you wake up in the morning, in the middle of the night, don't look at the clock. Because what are you going to do? Get more hours because you look at the clock? All it's going to do is irritate you. So I think it was about 2 o'clock, but I tossed and turned for a while. I was not able to kind of get back to sleep. So then when I finally kind of fell back asleep a little bit and the alarm went off at 4, I was like, And yet part of my brain was like, Laurel, you committed. Just get up and make it, just get up. You got the radio show today. You got to like put on real clothes today. You're not wearing a mask. So you get to put on your face today. I mean, all of these things, just get up. When did I get up? 5:45. 5:45 versus 4 o'clock. And I was still exhausted. And not only was I exhausted, now I'm irritated and frustrated at myself and disappointed because I didn't even make my commitment to myself. Right? And so I give y'all that example to say, I was so convicted yesterday. Wake up this morning and reality smacked me in the face because the old habits showed up. The old habit of not sleeping well. And just let me get a few more. It's a Tuesday, so I'm not meeting my trainer at 6 a.m. So I got a few more hours of sleep. But what that means is I didn't get done early in the morning, which now I'm going to do at the end of the day. And I know the ends of days are hard for me because, again, when it gets dark, my brain goes dark. I get tired because I'm up at, the crack of dawn. But when I listen to the book and I think back about that book, one of the things he says is, do that thing you hate every day and get up and make some stuff happen early in the morning. Because so many of us say, oh, I'll do the workout at night, right? I'll read that at night. I'll do some things at night. But by the time we get through the day, we're tired. We're tired, or we got other stuff that crops up. And I have found, especially when I'm on my rowing game, I get up, I get out of bed, I go to the bathroom, I get on the rower. That's I don't even think about it. That's just, it just works like that. That's the habit. Because if I think about it, I find all other things I need to do. Well, let me go do this first. Let me go take care of this and then I'll get it. And the next thing you know, it's 6 o'clock at night and I haven't rowed. And then you feel bad because you haven't done it. So, messages and mindset. I was able to hear that message. Just do that one thing you hate every day. Do that one thing you hate. So yesterday was kitchen cleaning. After I set up my Memorial Day table, I cleaned the kitchen. I said, you know what? We're going to go one room at a time this week. And we're just going to get all the clutter. We're going to dust. We're going to put everything that needs to be somewhere else. Everything in its place. And so I did my kitchen yesterday. Didn't do my rowing this morning, but I am going to get that row in tonight. Because the other thing he talks about is pushing past that governor in your mind. And that's another thing that spoke to me. Again, we hear the messages when we're ready. People that get to you and say it in a way that you can absorb it and that punches you, right? So your conviction and your convenience don't live on the same block. That got me. This one, when he started talking about having a governor in your mind, it's like, I get that because I'm a car girl. I love cars. I'm by no means a connoisseur, but I love cars. Big throaty engines, not these little, I don't even know what they call them, those little cars that they turn the muffler on and it's just loud just to be loud. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about great engineering, that kind of noise. A Harley, right? That kind of noise that just gets in your bones. Muscle cars, lots of speed, lots of power. I love that. In my first HR job, I was supporting a logistics organization and I had over the road truck drivers. So I knew when he started talking about a governor, I knew what he meant. So when you think about people who are driving big rigs for companies, they often put governors on the trucks, and that limits how fast the truck can actually go. So they may put a governor on the truck at 75 because the route had the highest speed limit on the route is like 70, but it's mountainous. So they'll put a governor on it at 75 so the truck can get enough speed to get up the mountains, right? Or they may put it at 70, but it's something that governs the kind of speed that you can get. And so when he talks about having a governor on your mind, it's that stop on your mind. And he talks about it, of course, because he's an athlete, right? He talks about it a lot in the sense of exercising and working out. He's like, do that one rep. When your mind is to the point where it says it's in pain, I can't do anymore. I can't do anymore. If you're biking, if you're running, if you're exercising, do 10 more seconds. Do 5 more reps. You're trying to reset your governor, reset your pain point on purpose. You're trying to reset your pain point on purpose. The challenge with the governor is that we all have a governor, but sometimes our governor has been reset by other people, by external forces. And we don't realize how much pain, thank you, Sarah. We don't realize how much pain we're able to take because we keep resetting our governor to take on more and more and more and more and more pain. That's not the kind of governor we're talking about. I'm talking about an intentional resetting of mindset limitations, which is what David Goggins talks about when he says there's a governor on our minds. That thing that tells you you can't, or you shouldn't, or you won't be able to, or this is going to be a failure, or this is going to hurt. Those things that prevent you from getting to that goal that you set for yourself. Not the goals other people have set for you. We've talked about that before. We'll probably talk about that again. But the goals that you've set for yourself, what is pushing you past that goal you've set for yourself? Or what's limiting you? And how do you reset that governor so it's still there enough to keep you safe, but it's not there to keep you mediocre? Because we are all capable of excellence. We're all capable of greatness in something. Some of us in many things. But if that governor that we have set on our brain, and that just really worked for me, that governor that's set on our brain can keep us in mediocrity, can keep us in our zone of excellence instead of our zone of genius. The other thing reading this book brought up for me that was that I knew, but was like another one of those things that just kind of hits you in the face, and I've been talking about it a lot here, is I really miss spending time in podcasts and listening to and watching documentaries and reading books like this. I miss that because that's where that's how I learn. That's how my brain gets expanded. That's where I get energy by learning stuff. I love to learn new stuff. I love to listen to other people's perspectives and then be able to use that in my toolbox to help supplement what I do naturally around seeing dots and connecting dots and helping people rethink things. By getting other people's perspectives, it helps me to broaden mine as well so I can help broaden others. And so reading The Big Leap, talking about the difference between a zone of excellence and a zone of genius. Reading Can't Hurt Me, talking about the, resetting the governor on your mind and doing something every day that you hate so you develop a new habit. All of those kind of things. Owning your own stuff. That's a big one of his. Owning your own stuff. There was an error that he made when he was trying to get into Delta Force, and he suffered for that error. And when people were like, "We can't believe that that they're taking you out of here. There's no way. You're the best one here." And he's like, "Nope. I made a judgment call. I knew what the risks were when I made it, and I would have made the exact same decision that they're making." He's like, "I couldn't be mad. I couldn't be upset. I couldn't be in tears." He said, "I did it on purpose. What I could be upset about is that what got me there was a lack of humility, a lack of preparation, a lack of paying attention, a lack of focus. And I'm better than that. And I can do better than that." And I took that failure as a reminder and a lesson for myself to remain focused and to not let my confidence overshadow or outrun my competence. And sometimes we do that. We get so confident in the stuff that we've seen that we're not prepared for the stuff that we've never seen before. That can crop up when we least expect it. When we least expect it. But by giving ourselves the opportunity to really listen to messages at the time that we're meant to hear them, right? They come along. If we can just be open, he talks about being open-minded. If we can be open to the messages that we are meant to hear at the time, there is so much you can get from that just from being open to a message that you need to hear. And not the message that you want to hear, but the message that you need to hear. And there is a difference. There's a big difference. He is a man of faith. And he talks about, we need to pray for the things that we want, right? He said, but you don't go in a room and pray and just sit. He said, you go in a room, you pray sincerely, and then you take action. Mm-hmm. You move towards that thing that you are believing for. Mm-hmm. You put yourself in action towards that thing. You don't just sit and wait for it to miraculously appear just because you want it. But that means you have to be inconvenienced to do that. You have to actually maybe do some stuff you don't want to do. You have to get up at 4 a.m. and do this row. If I want to reach this goal by the time that I want to reach it, that means there's some things that I've got to do that are less than convenient, but are necessary if I am serious about the goal. Now, if I'm not serious about the goal, okay, and I can just own that too. I just got to be real with me. Just as you have to be real with you. Are you really serious about that goal you say you want? And what are you willing to do to get it? And how prepared are you willing to get? Are you willing to understand what you don't know, what skill you don't have? And are you willing to go get it? Whether that's learn it yourself, go find somebody else who's got it and buy their services, whatever it is. What are you willing to do? Remember, we talked about strategy. Who are you? Where are you? What do you want? And what do you got to do to get there? And in that, what have you got to do is what are you willing to do to get there? Because many of us are capable of many, many more things than we think. They might not be things that we want to do or that we're interested in, but we're much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. So when we find something that we really want to do and that we really believe in, are we willing to put in the work to get it? And what are the lessons that we're willing to learn? You know, Jerry and I were laughing earlier about gardening. She was going to show my picture.
You sit there.
I mean, oh, y'all see my little pepper?
Yes, your little pepper.
I love my little pepper. That's one of them. That one's going to be orange eventually, I think. It's supposed to be orange. And I posted this about the lessons that I've learned doing this thing that Jerry made me do. And doing this gardening. Suggested strongly that I do. Just the lessons, right? The lessons, the messages that I didn't know I needed, but I did need. And because I was in this space of, first of obligation, right? I was like, she is not going to shame me by me not getting this garden done when I committed. Because she's right. I made a commitment publicly. I got to follow through. But in doing so, it has become such a refuge for me, such a point of peace for me. So much so that when I drove back in town, I actually put all my stuff away, went to the store, and then got in my garden before I even went in my house, right? But the lessons that I've learned that I posted, you know, I had these okra plants, which I love okra. Had these okra plants, all of a sudden wound up with all these aphids. It was awful, all these aphids. I was sick.
What is that?
They're like little black aphids, right? So they were called black aphids that wind up on okra plants. They're little bugs.
Okay.
And they'll eat the leaves of your plant. You get them on roses and everything. So I saw all these aphids and my okra was blooming, which I thought were the actual okra, but it was really just the flowers that come before the okra. But everything was blooming. And then all of a sudden, all these bugs. I thought, wait, it's taking them forever.
So the flowers are the indication that the okra is coming?
Yeah, the flowers. So I posted that yellow flower. I'll post a new one. That's a little yellow flower that comes before the okra. I keep seeing those yellow flowers. I'm like, but what okra? Yeah. So that's the indication. Yes. So once that falls off, you'll see a little bud and that becomes the okra. And so when I looked at all these bugs and then I was like, okay, but what can I do? So I'm Googling. Jerry's laughing at me. I'm Googling. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting, water and a little bit of Dawn and spraying everything to kill the bugs. And I go out there and I wipe the bugs off. And it's taken, that's a Cubanelle pepper plant. And so it took forever for them to kind of start coming in.
They said nice peppers. Look at that.
Thank you.
Because she came in late.
Thank you. I'm so excited about my peppers. Now we're getting all this rain. I'm like, let me go buy some more tarts, y'all. It's an obsession. So let me just admit, hi, I'm Laurel. I'm obsessed with my garden. And so I cleaned off the plants, and then I saw these little buds. So again, when did we start this, Jerry? Way back in February, March?
Right when the pandemic hit.
So March,
yeah.
No. It wasn't last year. It was this year. It was like fall, wasn't it? January and February. It was this year.
Oh, it's been that long?
Yeah, it was this year. Okay. So anyway, it's been months.
Yeah.
About to lose my cucumbers. My cucumbers are coming back, y'all. Makes me very happy. About to lose my cucumbers. I'm going to nurseries trying to figure out what's going on. Got these aphids. Okra was taking forever. I was already getting pepper plants. I'm thinking, I'm never going to get any okra. But all of a sudden, the flowers fell off. These little buds started for okra. And I come back and I've got like okra. Go slow to go fast, right? That was the lesson. Go slow to go fast. It took forever to get to flowering on this okra plant. But once it did, it was on. It spent time in preparation, right? I fed it. I groomed it. I loved it. And it showed out. I've still got some more coming. It showed out.
But Laura, you said something earlier that makes perfect sense. You couldn't have, you said because I forced you to do it, but there had to be something in you that was ready to try something. And a lot of times it's competition with me, and you said, I'm not going to let her shame me.
Right.
But you could have been in that place of not hearing none of it.
Exactly.
And now look at it, because you have superseded the group. And I'm like, But you see,
go slow to go fast. I may be slow, but I come on strong.
So did you have to have something on the inside of you that was ready to receive that?
You know, you really do. So there's a couple of things. Sometimes shame or pain will make us, you know, as they say, poop or get off the pot, right? That will sometimes get you in action, but that won't keep you in action. And one of the things for me was very much this idea of, how do I find that thing that's going to give me some peace? Because entrepreneurship, y'all, is not easy. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of time in your own head. It's a lot of time alone. It's a lot of it's just a lot. And then if you add life on top of it, and that's the whole thing about messages, right? Messages and mindset. There's so much going on in Texas now. We're about to another heavy hurricane season. Some people are still suffering from the freeze. I mean, it's on top of the pandemic, y'all. It's just madness. It's a lot. And what I found was, you know, I've always been one of those people. It's one of the reasons I have a tree in my logo, that when I go out the first thing in the morning, I look at the trees, I take a deep breath. There's something about that first step outside, that just reminder of who I am and whose I am. And just that first breath of fresh air and being outside. I love the heat, but I don't love just being out in the sun. I'm not one of those like sun worshipers, but I do like being outside and enjoying just doing stuff. But I don't do bugs. So I don't dig in the ground. So I knew if I was going to do this, I was going to have to do upright gardens. And I do love flowers because I love color. And so for me, what this gardening thing did was, one, it got me outside, and I needed to get out of my house. I was spending way too much time in my house, sitting in a chair. It made me get up and move around. It also helped my brain work because I had to put the little planters together, right? And so I love putting things together. I'm a process-minded person. So it did that. I was able to find some plants and find some flowers and just watching things grow. There's been so many lessons in paying attention, lessons in how to water, how not to water. Do you have enough soil? Do you not have enough soil? What about these dang mushrooms that keep showing up? What about the squirrels? Had to make me get creative. So I was ready for something new. I knew I needed something different. I knew I needed to get outside. This was an impetus to do that. And it's just taken off. It's just taken off. You know, David Goggins also talks about, you know, enemies and how when you run your race, if you are worried about the competition, you're running their race, not yours, which I thought was a great perspective on that. I never thought about it that way. You know, they say don't compare your people to other, but I never thought about it from the perspective of when you are comparing yourself to someone else and you're worried about how they're running, you're running their race and not your race. And you hear people, athletes especially, talk about that all the time. You got to be in your own race. You got to run your own race. Because when you're worried about other people, you start getting off your game. And so in looking at everything that's going on and this survival and competition, it was really about forcing myself to also get creative, giving myself time and space to breathe, to just not think about anything else. Because it's kind of like golfing. That's one of the reasons I did like golf, because I can't think about anything else because my head is messy usually. I'm always thinking about multiple things at the same time. And so golf forces you to pay attention and to focus. The same thing with this gardening. It forces you to pay attention and to focus. What are you doing? How are you growing? What do you see? What do you not see? Is there a bug? Is that a mushroom? How do you know? And the creativity has been kind of cool because me and these squirrels are like in a standoff. And I thought I was winning. And then I got home and they had dug up all my peonies in the bottom thing. So I got to figure out how to protect those again. And then because I'd kept them out of my stuff, they decided to plant their own garden and planted a peanut in my hydrangea. What? I know. I posted that too. So the lesson, right? If somebody else is taking away your method of eating or running or growing, you find another one. So because I wouldn't let them eat my things, they decided to plant their own. So I pulled that sucker out and planted it somewhere else. I'll let them do what they want to do with it, right? It's a peanut, George Washington Carver. So this whole idea of messages and mindset, I don't know that we have to go so far as to callous our mind, as David Goggins says, although I think his experience taught him that is the way he needed to do it. And I absolutely honor that because he has been extremely successful by a multitude of measures and it works for him. But I also honor the fact that he does not sit in judgment of what everybody else's need is around mindset. For me, mindset is I have to find times to be clear and to be still and to just think and to strategize. I have to give myself that time, deliberately give myself that time. And I have not done that lately. I have to have opportunities to learn and grow and develop and see something new and go somewhere new. And just that new keeps me moving. Because boredom is stagnation for me. It is death for me. If I'm bored, it is over. And so being able to continually learn and continually be challenged is key for me. And also getting rest, but giving myself grace. I did not hear a lot in his book. I did not hear a lot of grace being given, at least at the very beginning. I think he's giving himself more grace now as he's reached this point of his life than he ever did. But for me, grace is really important because remember I said very early that some of those words like accountability read for me as judgment. And that becomes really harsh and that becomes pain. And in some ways, my brain has wired success to pain. My experience has wired success to pain. That polyvagal, right? That success equals pain is part of my sympathetic and dorsal system. My nervous response is either fight, flight, or freeze around success. Because I was very successful in corporate and it was painful. It was painful. And so there's some neurons that have wired that success equals pain, which is not necessarily logical, but it is experientially true. It's not factually true, but is experientially true for me. And so the thing about reading other people's messages and understanding other people's stories, and was also a butt kicker to get mine done in somewhere so people can read it, is that when we are ready, we hear the message that our soul needs to hear. And I needed to hear, right? Just pick that one thing that you hate every day. You don't have to do everything. Just pick one thing that you hate and do it every day. Manage that governor on your brain, which spoke to me because I love cars, right? Manage that governor. Do just 10 more seconds. He didn't say, okay, so you do 2 miles. Next time you need to do 10. That's not what he said. Mm-hmm. If you do 2 miles, just run 10 more seconds, run 10 more minutes. And then the next time, run 15 more minutes. He didn't say, go run 2 miles and then go run 200. Forward is forward. Whatever that baby step is, what you're trying to do is reset the backstop. You're trying to reset the governor. And preparation, be prepared. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Be prepared. Be prepared. Now, because he is also former military, I'm really careful about saying former and not ex, because I think it's Marines. You're never an ex-Marine, right? You're only a former Marine. Because he is former military as well, that whole preparation thing is really key for everything that they do, right? You got to prepare. Prepare as much as you can for everything. Plan for everything, knowing that something's going to happen that you couldn't plan for. But at least the stuff that you could plan for, you're ready. So that mindset of preparation, the mindset of not caring about what other people think, the mindset of running your own race. Because if you're in competition with someone else, that means you're running their race, not yours, right? That mindset of being consistent, that mindset of being clear, all of those things give us such a level of strength, right? Not perfection, but strength. As one of my coaches says, the P in perfection stands for poison. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for consistency. You're looking for a continuation along that path to the goal you said you have for yourself, to that thing you said you wanted. You're looking for the places where you're willing to be inconvenienced, because you've got enough conviction that the inconvenience is worth it. And when you're not willing to do it, how deep is your conviction? And I'm asking myself these same questions I'm asking y'all. How deep is my conviction around doing this thing that I'm getting ready to do? How deep is my conviction on getting to this ultimate goal when I couldn't get up at 4 o'clock this morning? Now, it is one day, it's one time. My life is not over. It's one failure. I brush that off. I put it on the ground. I stand on it to get to the next one. And we're going to make this happen because I'm determined. We'll see how strong my conviction is and if it matches my determination and my desire. But really check your mindset. check your mindset and check the messages that you're allowing in and the messages that you know you need. Because only when we're open and when we're ready do those messages show up. And be really cognizant of the messages that really aren't the messages that you need, how deep you let them get in, because those can be detrimental. All right.
Annette said something.
Hey,
she
Annette.
said okra plants grow faster if you whip the okra plant.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go Google it.
Yeah, don't go out there starting to beat.
Right.
Hey,
I'm going to Google it before I get there today. Yeah, because I've got flowering at the top, so there's a few more coming. My peppers, they're coming, but there's a few of those pepper plants that only have a couple things. So I'm hoping they'll do out some more. I think you have to, it's kind of like with all the herbs that I'm growing, you have to cut them back and they actually grow up bushier and heavier, right? As you cut them, you cut the full stalks, not just pull off leaves.
Do you find that doing the gardening has helped your creativity and helped your mind get clear?
It absolutely has, especially because I had to fight those dang squirrels. And my squirrels are gangster, y'all. I had to get really creative. So yes, it has. And it's time outside where I can't think about anything else. Although I do. There's some things that come up for me while I'm gardening, like, oh, I should do that. What I got to get better at is having like a little recorder or something, using my voice recorder on my phone while I'm out there and just recording what it was so I don't forget it. Because I will.
And the other takeaway is he said to make sure that you do something that you don't like to do every day. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that will help you get out of being redundant? Because sometimes I can be like, I can't do stagnant. It's redundant. It's right. The same thing. You have to do something challenging yourself.
Yeah, you have to do something that you hate every day. And it depends on what your goal is. My ultimate health goal, there's something that I have to do every day. My ultimate, goal of being able to have people show up at my house at any time, just drop in. I don't want that to happen, but if it happens, I don't want to feel panic, right? And I hate to dust. And I hate to vacuum, those kind of things. And so if you're really cleaning your house and it's not in chaos, you got to do both of those things. So every day, do something that you hate to do every day and just be consistent. And it's not that you all of a sudden start to love it, because that's not going to happen, but at least it becomes something that becomes a habit. And so it becomes not as torturous. It just becomes something that gets done because it needs to be done. And with that, that's the Rutledge Perspective this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for looking at my little veggies. You can find them on my Facebook page at the Rutledge Perspective. And I'm going to go look up whipping okra so I know what that means for next time. Go get the book, Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins. He said in the audiobook that actually if you send him messages, he actually tries to respond to every message. So I'm going to test that out, see if that happens. But it was masterful. Again, it's got some pretty heavy language in it. But if you can get past that and just realize it is what it is and it's how his life has transpired, and not miss the messages in your sensibilities being offended, I think you will get a lot out of it. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, Goggins. The other book was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And then Lisa Nichols, Your Conviction and Your Convenience Don't Live on the Same Block. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Same time, same station. Bye.